Everybody got quiet when you sat down.
Yeah. I guess I have presents, right?
Yes, sir.
I don't want to do a commercial for Co-Palm here. We'll imply an Apex endorsement.
I see that everyone got quiet, so I guess you're ready to start the meeting, so we'll go ahead and kick it off. I'll now call the regular scheduled Apex Town Council meeting for Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 to order. And I would like to welcome all of you here and those who are watching on live stream via YouTube. And I want to say that it is a beautiful day outside with beautiful people inside here in the council chamber. So thanks for being here. We'll go ahead and now move to the proclamation. But before we do that, I do want to send a special shout out to our IT staff person, Fernando, who keeps us moving with our IT infrastructure here. So thank you for doing that. So we'll move now to the invocation, and I'll turn it over to Mayor Pro Tem for a reading of a statement.
The town of Apex values and celebrates diversity and inclusion. We see diversity as a strength that binds our community together. Inviting members from different faith communities to deliver the invocation at the beginning of our council meeting supports this unity. Recognizing that not everyone practices the same traditions, we do welcome you to have a private moment of silence at this time.
Thank you so much. And we do have a community of hope here. So many ministries, diverse organizations doing the work of the ministry, providing that hope. I see Asa Clark here tonight. I see Minister Karen Morant. So many people here doing a great work in Apex. So I'd like to call on another pastor, and it is a pastor from Hope Community Church, Pastor Eddie Mullins, if you would come up and deliver the invocation.
Before I pray, I just want to give a word of thanks and encouragement to those of you who serve our great town. I've lived here since 2007. And there's no other place I'd rather live and raise my family than the Peak of Good Living, and that's thanks to you guys. So let's pray. Father, we are grateful that we can meet here tonight in the great town of Apex, North Carolina, and in this country of the free. Father, we thank those who have served and who currently serve and sacrificed for that freedom. Father, we lift up specifically our leaders, Mayor Gilbert, and the men and women that surround him here tonight, that you give them wisdom and discernment and the decisions, the hard choices they have to make day in and day out for the betterment of Apex. God, we ask for protection of our first responders, our police, and our firefighters, and our EMS, that you give them courage and knowledge in the moment that matters most. Father, in the book of Romans, you say that public servants are a gift from you, that they're here to serve us. And so, God, we lift them up tonight. Father, I pray for whatever needs to be discussed here tonight to be discussed, and that Apex can leave here a better place than when we entered it in. Most of all, Father, we are grateful for who you are and your love for us, that you loved us so much that you would send Jesus to die for us. So thank you for that. And it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Mullins. Appreciate it. All right, if you would, stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance if you can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you so much. We'll move now to our consent agenda, and all consent agenda items are considered routine to be enacted by one motion with the adoption of the consent agenda without discussion. If a council member requests discussion of an item, the item may be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and second. All in favor indicate.
Mayor, if I could real quick, say a quick word about consent number 8. It's the charter amendment for Central Pines Regional Council. It's been my honor to be on the delegate for it was Triangle J formerly. Now they're changing it to Central Pines Regional Council. It's been my honor to be a delegate from Apex on that for the last 5 years, and I think that council government is one of the more underappreciated regional governments in the area. They work on things like housing and environmental issues, aging, transportation, and they do a lot of good work that makes our region more cohesive and I think better as a whole. So I'm really excited about this charter resolution and fully supportive. Thanks.
All right, thank you so much for those comments. Certainly worthy of the recognition. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move now to presentations. The first presentation tonight is Apex Public School Foundation Quarterly Peak Star Awards, presented tonight by Council Member Terry Mahaffey.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Just a couple opening words here. So what we're doing tonight is our quarterly award ceremony for what we call the Peak Star. Peak Star is staff, teachers, and administration recognition award. The Apex Town Council partners with the Apex Public School Foundation to select and honor one of our hardworking teachers, staff members, administrators here in Apex. We learn a little bit about what they're doing in their school and thank them for all their efforts on behalf of all the citizens, for our students here. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Michelle Woods, current president of Apex Public School Foundation, right?
Just a board member.
Board member, my apologies. Board member who tell us a little more about the program and what we're doing tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Michelle Woods, and I serve as a board member for the Apex Public School Foundation. The Apex Public School Foundation is a nonprofit, volunteer-driven education foundation. We were founded in 2018 with a mission to serve the over 19,000 students in our Apex area schools, public schools. So we also partner with the town of Apex to honor a principal-nominated school staff member as a Peak Star recipient. Peak Star recipients are nominated because of the work that they're doing for our Apex area students. So tonight we're honoring Christopher Colosi. He is a third grade teacher at Oakview Elementary and our Peak Star recipient. I'd like to welcome Michael. He is the assistant principal at Oakview Elementary, and he would like to say just a few words of appreciation for Mr. Colosi's work.
Mr. Colosi brings warmth, positivity, optimism, and joy, not only to his students, but the entire Oakview community. Anyone who walks into his classroom can feel the enthusiasm radiating out of every comment he makes. You leave thinking there is no way Mr. Colosi can maintain that passion for an entire school day. But sure enough, if you pop into his room during any part of the day, the same phenomenal energy flows from his instruction. What makes Mr. Colosi truly special is that his love of teaching manifests itself through his encouragement of his students. Mr. Colosi is his kids' biggest cheerleader. He is their advocate, their motivator, and their picker-upper. Students leave Mr. Colosi's classroom at the end of the year knowing they have gained a lifelong fan. It's my honor and privilege to serve alongside Mr. Colosi in Oakview Elementary as an assistant principal. My colleague Jamie Marconi, another assistant principal, is here as well. Mr. Gaudet, David Gaudet, he's our principal. He cannot be here, but we thank the town of Apex for supporting public education. It's super important, and there's no better embodiment of an outstanding teacher and how hard they work and the great work that they do and the support and love they give kids every day than Mr. Chris Colosi. He is outstanding. He is inspiration to all of us, his students, myself as well. He's an incredible educator. So we thank him for all the hard work that he does every day. Thank you.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you. All right, we'll flag for you.
Turn you on this way. Go back here.
Yeah. Michelle, you want to go up too?
Yeah.
You ready? All right.
Hello, tie for me. All right. Thank you.
I appreciate this. Thank you. It's nice to hear from your bosses when they when they come in any time of the day. I'm glad that they get out of it when they come into my classroom, because that's the work that I put into it. I love it, and I'm glad that it shows through my teaching. And I appreciate this. Thank you.
Good job, Mr. Williams. All right, Councilman Happy, thank you so much. And we'll move now to proclamation, Foster Care Awareness Month. And we will join in on the reading of proclamation as a council. We'll start with, who's first?
I got it.
All right, let's roll with it then.
Let's go.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the proclamation for Foster Care Awareness Month, 2023. Whereas children represent our community's greatest asset and our hope for the future, and every child deserves to grow up in a safe, loving, and nurturing home. And whereas Shield, North Carolina reports that according to FBI statistics, 60% of human trafficking victims have been in foster care or group homes in their lives. And
whereas Shield recommends supporting children in foster care as a way to mitigate the increased risk of exploitation they face, and whereas in North Carolina, there are over 12,000 children in the foster system waiting to find their forever homes, and
whereas as of November 2022 in Wake County, there are 503 children in foster care system, but only 90 foster homes, which is half of the number of homes available in 2019. And
Whereas most of the children waiting to be adopted are school-aged children, teenagers, groups of siblings who want to stay together, children with special needs, or children of color, and
whereas relational permanency is fundamental to the well-being of children and youth, supporting foster care children and their foster and biological families and services that support foster children can help change generations, break cycles of abuse, prevent exploitation, and give children the opportunity to thrive.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of May 2023 Foster Care Awareness Month in the town of Apex, and encourage all residents to consider supporting the foster care system in Wake County and in North Carolina to help provide the love and comfort our children fully deserve. Signed this 23rd day of May 2023. And accepting the proclamation tonight will be Jody Waba from the Engagement Specialist with Shield NC. So if you would, please come up. And we have Nicole Bernard here also. We have the whole gang here. Come on up.
Can I get like 2 more people over here?
I'm going to thank you for been doing this for quite some time. I remember the first time we met in the coffee shop and you presented your vision for Shield NC. And I appreciate all those who are around you that are getting the job done every single day. It's so needed in our community. I think oftentimes people just overlook this issue, and it's clearly an issue in our town. We got to continue to focus on that. So thank you for your work. So on behalf of the town of Apex, for representing this proclamation.
I just want to extend a very sincere thank you to you, Mayor Gilbert, and Town Council. Thank you so much. As an anti-human trafficking organization, it might seem odd that we are really spearheading a proclamation for foster care, but we know that there are heroes in this town who are truly doing the good prevention work of human trafficking and exploitation, and that is our foster care workers and the families who step up and say, it'll be me, I'll take care of them. And they are doing the work to make sure in our town that these children are getting the love that they deserve, the validation that they deserve, and the safety that they deserve so that they are inoculated from exploitation. So I do want to recognize the families that we have here in attendance tonight who are providing that care. So I just want to recognize the heroes that we have amongst us this evening.
All right, thanks again, everyone. We'll move now to Proclamation 3, LGBTQIA plus Pride Month, June 2023. And we will join in on the reading of that proclamation. So who's starting us off tonight?
I'm starting.
Councilman Hammond.
Okay. Whereas LGBTQIA plus Pride Month acknowledges and celebrates the lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, and asexual community, as well as their numerous achievements and contributions to society. And
Whereas after police raided the Stonewall Inn on June 28, 1969, a series of protests broke out in New York City against unjust criminalization and policing of homosexuality. On June 28, 1970, on the one-year anniversary of the Stonewall Uprising, the first Pride marches were held in New York City, Los Angeles, and Chicago. Thousands of LGBTQIA plus people gathered to commemorate Stonewall and demonstrate for equal rights. And
whereas the pride flag was designed using the colors of the rainbow as a symbol of hope, and the rainbow colors shown how together the diversity among people in our community can create something truly beautiful and awe-inspiring. And whereas North Carolina is home to over 400,000 members of the LGBTQIA plus community. And
whereas the town of Apex stands with the LGBTQIA plus community in the struggle to ensure equal treatment of all and to defend and advocate for LGBTQIA plus rights as human rights. And
whereas the town of Apex celebrates LGBTQIA plus Pride Month in recognition of the progress made in the fight against discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity. Additionally, the town of Apex is committed to being a place where all people, regardless of their sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression, are treated with dignity and respect. And
whereas during Pride Month, we recognize the resilience and resolve of the many individuals who continue to advocate to live freely and authentically in their pursuit of contributing to our community, expanding hearts and minds, while laying the foundation for a more just and equitable Apex community and nation. May we continue to celebrate the diversity of our community and cultivate a spirit of inclusion and unconditional love for all. This Pride Month, we affirm our responsibility and our obligation to uphold the dignity of all people, protect the vulnerable, and commit ourselves to continue to make Apex a space of hope, love, understanding, and respect by celebrating our common humanity. Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim the month of June 2023 LGBTQIA plus Pride Month in the town of Apex. I have more. On the evening of June 10th, 2023, the Hunter Street Water Tower will display the colors of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple to recognize Pride Month in the town of Apex. I welcome all residents to recognize and celebrate the progress that has been made and the work that continues towards creating a more just society for all people in the LGBTQIA plus community. Signed this 23rd day of May, 2023. And accepting the proclamation tonight is Deanna Kennard and Apex Pride members. So if you will come up.
bringing in Pride Month.
I like that. Sorry. Always talk.
My name is Deanna Connard, and I'm the lead organizer for Apex Pride. I'd like to thank the town of Apex for recognizing June as Pride Month and for recognizing Apex Pride for our efforts to honor and celebrate the LGBTQ+ community. When my family moved to Apex a few years ago, it was noticeable to us that the LGBTQ+ community members weren't very well represented. That Apex, although it had grown substantially and quickly, was absent of Pride events. With the assistance of some volunteers, including Town Councilwoman Audra Killingsworth, we held the first Pride celebration in 2021 at Hunter Street Park, where over 1,000 people gathered. It was amazing how well it was received, and it was very clear that it met a need within our community. We have since grown to a full-scale annual festival attended by several thousand people in 2022, and we're preparing for our third major event, June 10th, as well as other activities and events throughout the year. It has been an honor to work alongside some amazing people, including our other organizers that I could not do this without. Together with the support of the town of Apex, our organization's goal is that all residents of Apex will feel represented, included, and affirmed. Thank you.
Okay, proclamation number 4, Juneteenth in Apex, North Carolina. So we'll also join in on the reading of the proclamation. And who's starting us off tonight?
My honor to lead this one, Mayor.
Okay, go for it, sir.
Whereas July 4th, 1776 is recognized as the day the United States gained its freedom from the British Empire. On this date, and for 89 more years, slavery, the antithesis of freedom, remained present in many parts of the United States. And whereas on January 1st, 1863, President Abraham Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, officially ascribing the Civil War as a war for the freedom of enslaved African Americans. And
whereas on June 19, 1865, Union General Gordon Granger informed slaves in Galveston, Texas that they were free and that the Civil War was over. This date, Juneteenth, is recognized as the end of slavery in the United States and the day African Americans gained their freedom. And
whereas Juneteenth is a nationwide celebration of the freeing of slaves and a day for communities to come together to celebrate African American heritage and culture, as well as an annual reminder of the racism and oppression that has marred the history of our nation. And
whereas although slavery in the United States is in the past, civil rights and equality issues for African Americans still persist, and there remain economic, institutional, and societal barriers for Black and brown people in our community, state, and country. And
whereas the town of Apex is committed to bolstering efforts necessary to alleviate racial injustices in our society and provide education and awareness so we continue to move farther and farther away from the throes of oppression.
Now, therefore, I, Jacques K. Gilbert, Mayor of Apex, North Carolina, do hereby proclaim June 19th, 2023, Juneteenth in the town of Apex. I have more, but you come over here. You come up. I have more. On the evening of June 17, 2023, Hunter Street Water Tower will illuminate the colors of red, yellow, and green to recognize Juneteenth in Apex. I welcome residents to join me in honoring and celebrating those who fought for the freedom of African American community and in supporting those who continue their relentless pursuit to expand the spirit of freedom enshrined in Juneteenth, signed this 23rd day of May 2023. So accepting the proclamation tonight is Asa Clark and Tyler Evans of our subcommittee for the Juneteenth event. So now you can come up. So you are the chair of the subcommittee. Yeah. All right, I want to just thank you on behalf of the town for the amazing work you're doing with the, obviously the staff here with the town of Apex for getting this moving for us in third year for us. All right, thank you for the work you're doing on behalf of the town, council, and the mayor. Okay, this is for you. Thank you. Thank you. Good job. Any words? Yeah, I'll say a couple. Take on one time.
Hey, so you can't leave me, bro. You gotta leave me. I'll be short here because I always seem to get choked up when I start talking about what this day means for us, but in our community. But thank you to the town for 3 years of partnership and everything you guys have done to progress this event for us. We've been super excited. Taylor, Linda, definitely just want to express our gratitude for all the help and hard work that's been in this event. We've been planning since January, and really our two main goals here is just to provide education. I think one thing that was shocking to me is I actually didn't even know what Juneteenth was until I was 21 years old. As someone a part of the Black community, I think that was quite bizarre. So education is going to be one of the big pieces for our event this year and every year moving forward, same as the last 2 years. And then also just want to really extend an invitation to everyone in the community to be a part and celebrate together. So really looking forward to it and excited to see everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Okay. Thank you, council members, for joining on the reading of the proclamation. We'll move now to presentation number 5, 22 Audit Annual Comprehensive Financial Report presented tonight by Finance Director Antoine Morrison.
Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
Thank you for allowing me the time to present before you this afternoon, this evening. We have a completed audit for the 2022 fiscal year, and I'm excited. It has been a very grueling past 4 months getting this done, but we've got it done for you. We have our partner here, April Adams from Cherry Becker, who is our external auditing partner, who's going to make a presentation, and then I'll come up and go over some of the financial performance. And anytime you have a question, please feel free to stop us, slow us down, anything. Thank you. April.
Thanks, Antoine. Well, you've been at it for 4 months. I've been at it for a year trying to get this audit done. So I appreciate you coming in and helping. All right, let's see. So the purpose is tonight for you to receive the results. There's no action necessary. So what we're going to cover with you is just some required auditor communications, talk about the audit process and the audit results, go over some financial performance, then we got a summary and some other items, and then like Antoine said, we'll be glad to take any questions as we go along. So here's just a copy of what the front of the annual comprehensive report looks like. It's important for you to know that the town actually writes and prepares this financial statement. So they are taking the information from the financial system and producing this 200-page document, which, you know, is important to help show that, you know, you own your information, your financial information. We are truly coming in and just auditing that information. So the big part of the results of the audit is that we have issued unmodified opinions for the financial statement, as well as the 2 compliance opinions that come along for the federal and state grant dollars that are administered. An unmodified opinion is, while it doesn't sound good, that is the opinion that you want. That is the highest level of assurance that we can give you as an audit firm that your financial statements are free from material misstatement. We also issue what we call a yellow book report. This is the other report in accordance with the government auditing standards, and so there's no findings listed within that report as well. So basically you got the best results that you can get. got really quiet. I felt like the whole the whole room left me by herself. Okay, so along with your financial statement audit, we also do what we call a compliance audit, a single audit, and that is looking at the compliance requirements related to the grant dollars that you spend. We do what we call, we don't audit every single dollar that you spend, but we did audit as a major program for the federal grant program, the Corona State and Local Fiscal Recovery Funds. That's also known as the ARPA funds or the American Rescue Plan. Just the particular dollars that got assigned to the town are called that. We also audited the state major program of the PAL bill. That's also the street and sidewalk funds that are given, usually used for repaving and those types of things.
Can I ask you?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, but are these programs required to be audited specifically, or were these chosen like at random from all the various grants we have?
There is a process that we follow in order to determine which ones to audit. Basically, the coronavirus is required. It's deemed what they call a high-risk program because it's new. And so that one's typically going to get picked every year until you spend those dollars out. PAL bill, the state, we have to get a certain amount of coverage as well, and there's no way to get coverage without using the PAL bill on the state side. All right, so for internal controls, this is a lot of words on the slide. I don't expect you to read it. This presentation also serves as communication to you as a formal document, as well as the presentation that I'm giving. But when it comes to internal controls, it's important for us to tell you that as your external auditors, we don't actually opine on the internal controls. But as a part of our audit, we are required to do a certain level of work when it comes to internal controls and consider that as a part of our work. And so what we do is we identify the significant transaction cycles. So that's, you think about how the town receives cash, how the town disperses cash, how does the town make payroll, and that process along with that. And then the last cycle we look at is how does the town get the financial information from the system into this document? What are the controls around that process? What we are required to do is do a walkthrough of one transaction from its initiation all the way through how it gets ultimately reported. And so we do that. And then we also, as a part of our audit, choose to test controls over payroll and cash disbursements and rely upon that as a part of our assurance. All right, and so while we don't opine, we are required to report if we find any deficiencies while we're doing all of those procedures and work. So the types of deficiencies we would report to you would be either a material weakness or a significant deficiency. And I've listed here on the slide for you the definition of those. Material weakness is worse than a significant deficiency, but I'm happy to report we didn't have any material weaknesses to report, and we actually aren't, in accordance with the standards, allowed to say no significant deficiencies, but I'm not reporting one, so you can kind of infer that there weren't any noted. We did identify two other control deficiencies that we aren't required to report to you. We are issuing a management letter that kind of details those out just to kind of push up the importance of those, and we really want the town to consider addressing those, and I feel sure that you will. The first one is around a lack of segregation of duties for payroll. Using the terminology lack of segregation of duties is dangerous when you're talking about an audit. There are other compensating controls that lead us to believe that it's not to the level of a significant deficiency or a material weakness, but we are concerned that there are certain people that are able to do things such as input pay information for an individual, and then they also have a role in processing payroll and getting it paid through the system. And so what we'd like to see is that be segregated basically out of finance into HR department. The second one is around journal entries. So usually in a control environment, when journal entries are made, the person that creates the journal entry is not the same person that reviews it. And so in this case, we can't tell that that's actually happening because it's not documented. And so what we're looking for is the town to create a process, a formal process of exactly who can make journal entries and post them and who can review them, and the fact that they would be documented in some way that process has happened.
Can I ask you about the segregation issue a little bit? I'm curious as to whether this is a concern for towns of all sizes, or is it a matter of small towns, it's hard to segregate if you only have one payroll.
That's a good point. Yes, typically that does happen as the smaller town, if you have smaller number of people involved in the process. But I think this is just one of those things that this is how it's always been done with the town. And as you've grown, you now have the ability to segregate that, and you just haven't yet.
I guess that's what I'm trying to dig into is like, have we just crossed a threshold where now we have to start looking at these things, and it was fine 5 years ago, but now that we're a town of,
Right. As you have more employees and your payroll gets bigger, it gets harder and harder to realize that maybe something's not right with it.
And so you described some mitigating or compensating controls. So those are deemed to be adequate to keep that risk in check. So even though we have not yet segregated, like those compensating controls are sufficient at this point?
Yeah, so the compensating controls can be things like the town looks at monthly financial information. And so you would notice that your payroll number is higher than it should be or lower than it should be month to month when you're looking at our payroll to payroll. But it's just one of those things that if you had the actual control in place, that the numbers are checked and reviewed and put in by different people, that it would allow just a better chance of it being caught.
So it's a matter of having a better control than the existing control.
That's right. What you have does we do believe prevents your financial statements from being materially misstated, but there's still a risk there that's what we're highlighting.
Got it. Thank you.
All right, so during the audit process, after we are provided the trial balance and the financial statements themselves to review, if any kind of error or correction or adjusting journal entries identified during that process, we are of a certain dollar amount, we are required to bring that to your attention and report it as a part of the audit results. So the first type is a corrected misstatement. That means that we found something wrong with it and it actually had to be booked and corrected in order for your financial statements to be materially correct. We don't have any of those entries that occurred during the process. What we do have is 2 uncorrected misstatements. So what we're saying is that these are incorrect in your statements, but they're not causing the statements to be materially incorrect to the users of the financial statements. So we opted to leave them as they are because they just make more sense the way that they are in order to move forward. So the first one just has to do with literally the timing of the deposit that goes into the OPEB trust. So an entry was booked for that deposit to be made before June 30th, 2022, and it just wasn't made. And so it's sitting out there ready to be made at June 30th, but just didn't happen. And so when you get the trust statement, it doesn't show that that cash made it in there. So it's just different from the actual results. The second one has to do with the ABC board profit distribution. This happens on a delay. And so when Antoine came on board, he looked at how that delay was occurring and felt that he wanted to catch it up and get it on the right accrual basis. So while you've been reporting all these years, the amounts are technically the accrual of that amount is technically, different from year to year slightly, but not material. But in order to fix it going forward, you ended up with 5 quarters in 2023 in the numbers. And so going forward, it'll be fine. All right, so this slide just talks about more required communications that we have as a part of the audit. We talk about the qualitative aspects of the county policy, so it just kind of gives you a little more insight to certain things that might be of interest. So the first one is we're required to inform you of any significant changes in accounting policies from year to year that are in your financial statements. Typically that happens when a new accounting standard is issued and required to be implemented. That's the case for this year. We implemented GASB 87 that has to do with leases. And basically what it does is it takes whether you're a leasee or a lessor and requires you to put those amounts as assets or liabilities on your balance sheet. So in your case, you don't have any leasee that were material to be recorded, but you do have lessor. And so what you'll see new this year in your financial statements is a receivable for those future payments. And then a deferred inflow to offset that on your balance sheet as to wind down as you receive them. Oh, sorry, I was supposed to cover that one. So also during our audit, we do evaluate and look for related party transactions. We did not come across any as a part of our audit that are significant. If that had been the case, then we would have been required to apply some procedures to make sure that they were at arm's length and acceptable. Also, same thing for significant unusual transactions. We look for those during the course of our audit and would apply procedures to make sure they were properly recorded. We didn't notate anything significant or unusual in that regard. As far as significant estimates, we are required to bring those to your attention. Within your financial statement, you have an estimate for your allowance for doubtful accounts. You have an estimate based on the depreciation based on which assets you deem to be used for a certain period of life. And then the biggest estimates you have are your estimates for your pension and OPEB, which is your other post-employment benefits, your health insurance for your retirees, and then the OSUP pension is an estimate. And then lastly, financial disclosures, we would be required to bring to your attention if we felt like there were any disclosures within this financial statement that weren't clear, neutral, or consistent. But we do believe that any user can pick up these financial statements and read them and understand them pretty easily. All right, so as far as independence, as your auditors, we are required to maintain our independence from the town. So anytime we're doing anything what we call a non-attest service in conjunction with the audit, that would be something like if we wrote your financial statements, which we don't, or in this case, we help prepare the data collection form related to the federal dollars that you spend. It's just easier for us to do that because we do it for everybody versus one person trying to figure it out one time a year. So we do that, but we have to evaluate our independence in relation to that. So luckily, Antoine's going to have the skills, expertise, and knowledge to accept those services and set responsibility for them. So we are independent, and we've maintained our independence throughout the audit. All right, so other required communications, these are just a list of things that we're required to report to you that may or may not have occurred during the audit. The only difficulty encountered was the fact that you had significant turnover in your finance department, so we had to stop the audit and wait till new folks came in to carry it out. We didn't have any disagreements with management during the audit. We did have one consultation related to one restatement in your financial statements. What you'll see is that your affordable housing fund was in the prior year reported as a special revenue fund. In the current year, it's now reported as a sub-fund within the general fund. And so you'll see a restatement where that ending balance of fund balance in that fund for last year is now included in the beginning fund balance for the general fund. So that's just the way that goes and how that needed to be recorded for this year. Management representation. So we will be getting a signed management representation letter that we will be relying upon as a part of our opinion. Let's see. Other finding, we didn't have any other findings or other issues. As far as fraud and illegal acts, our audit is not designed to find fraud or illegal acts, but if we come across them as a part of our procedures, then we are required to report those to you. We did not identify any of the fraud or illegal acts during the audit. And as far as going concern, part of our opinion is that we have to consider, is the town able to continue going on for the next 12 months? And we do believe that that's going to happen. Because we only got like 8 more days.
I asked about the turnover. I remember you did the Triangle J one too, and there was turnover, and that caused it to be late. Are we on schedule here, or did our turnover cause us to miss something?
So that's one of the slides that's coming up. It might be next,
okay.
but yeah, it'll be the same thing. As far as our opinion goes, so we issue the opinion on the basic financial statement. So when you get this document and look at it, we kind of break it up and opine on it in several different ways. The basic financial statements are the main financial statements that you'll find. We call them the government-wide, so you'll see governmental activities and business type. And then we've got all the statements that are up front. That's your basic financial statements. That's what we opine on, that and the footnotes. After that, our opinion is either what we call a relation to opinion. So that's all the supplementary. That's all the schedules of the individual funds that are behind the notes that roll up into the numbers that you see up front that we opine on. We give an in relation to opinion. Basically, we're saying we tied those balances to these balances, but these are the ones we opine on. And then when it comes to the required supplementary information, that's the information that gives you the 10-year on the pension and retirees funds and liabilities. We don't opine on that, but what we do in the MD&A, the management discussion analysis, we read those and we make sure that they don't contradict what we're opining on, and then they're just in there. But there's no opinion on those particular pieces. And then the last thing is that there's information up front, like the transmittal letter, there's pictures of you guys, and then there's the stat tables that are in the back. We don't offer any opinion on those as well. So we just review those and make sure there's nothing contradictory as well. All right, here's to answer your question, Brett, about if the audit was late. So LGC does have performance indicators of concern. We fill out an Excel spreadsheet and it spits out whether there's any kind of concern that they are looking for as far as metrics that they're noting. The only thing that popped out is that the audit is late. An audit in the state of North Carolina for a governmental unit is due 5 months after year end. So your year end is June 30th, so it was due by December 1st of 2022. So what happens with that is that I'm required to make sure you're aware of that. And then I'm also required to inform you that as a board, within 60 days from today, you have to provide a response to the LGC as to what you're going to do to correct the fact that the audit was late. Antoine's going to put that together for you and get you guys to all sign it. Every single one of you has to sign it. And I firmly believe that you guys will be fine to get back on track. We're going to turn around and finish this one and and start the next one. I'm sure you're looking forward to that.
And was it just purely because of the staff turnover and the delays that cost in putting our documentation together?
Yeah.
And just to kind of follow up on that with the transition, I know that we had the retirement of our previous director and also some other staff turnover that had taken place in there. Outside of this just coming out late, any other indicators or any other findings that are significant that may have been as a result of that transition?
No, I mean, everything that I've reported in here was it. You know, we didn't find any material corrections or anything like that. So I think it was great. I mean, obviously it wasn't the transition you wanted, but I think the people that did leave left it in a good place to pick it up and take it, but it just takes time when that happens. All right, so coming up, the accounting standards that the town has to follow, they are putting these standards out like no tomorrow. So there's a couple to look forward to for next year. We will be discussing with Antoine how they impact the town and what the plan is. The biggest one that has to happen to be set in place and in motion and get taken care of so that we will get the audit done on time is this subscription-based technology arrangements. That's a fancy way of saying leasing software. And so that was not included in the standard that we implemented this year for leases. And so we're looking at that and we'll get that implemented. And Antoine's already got a software, ironically, another software too, that will calculate that. And so he's got that under control as far as I know. And I'm gonna let you hop up here and do these.
So we're just going to quickly go over some of the financial highlights for the 22 fiscal year. And we're thinking a year back, so this is as June 30th, 2022. The assessed value, we had $11.1 billion in tax value compared to the previous year of 10.4. So we're continuing to go up. The current ad valorem collection for last year was $43.5 million, which was an increase of $4.1 million year over year. 99.9% of tax collected, which is strong, which is very, very strong. We're glad to be in Wake County. And then you compare it to other organizations with electrical systems, 98.95, and then statewide average of 99.13. And these are numbers that come from data collected by the Local Government Commission. Fund balance and net position. Our fund balance, our net position increased last year. We went up $10.6 million for the general fund. Electric fund was $126,000, and water and sewer fund was $2.9 million. So we had increases for each one of our annually budgeted funds for last year, and you'll see the trend, the 5-year trend for each one of those funds. One thing I will note, with the electric fund being low, you'll also recall that our budget director is currently working on the electric rate study to make sure we are where we need to be. And so given that information that you're seeing before you with that rate study, there might be some changes coming along the way. We don't know yet. She's still working through that, but that will address some of that fund balance change there. The other thing to note is that with the, excuse me, the expectation in last year's budget was that we had appropriated fund balance. We had that discussion a couple of weeks ago. And we appropriated 337 for the electric fund, 1.7 million for the water and sewer, and 9.1 million for general fund, which we didn't use. We increased each one of those, even though we said that we gave ourselves the option of using fund balance. We did not need to tap into that, just using that as that balancing tool.
But just for clarity, like we do expect our fund balances to grow from time to time, like to save up for future capital investments, correct? Like the water and sewer, right? Like at some point we're going to do major maintenance or expansion on the Western Lake facility. So we're basically saving up for that event.
That's correct.
Right. So this is not just the money that we did not spend, right? Like there's a plan behind some of these dollars being added to the funds.
Yes,
But isn't some of the funds at that PO carryover thing where we plan on spending funds by June 30th and we spent them like July 2nd? So on this balance, it shows a huge balance, but actually we spent the money right after. That always kind of.
And that's my next slide.
All right, man.
And so our fund balance policies, 25%. So 25% of the subsequent year's adopted budget. And so the 25% of this current year, what we're in now, FY23 adopted budget would have been $22.8 million. And our fund balance for unassigned as of last year was 35.4% or $32.3 million, which left a spread of 9.5. So we were 9.5 million to the good for last year. And then we have to think about the purchase order carry forward that we're bringing in from last year, the $6.8 million, and this is just for general fund. And then we also appropriated within the budget, the adopted budget, 3.6 million. And so that's your 9 million that you're over for your fund balance. And so to answer your question, yes, that all that has to be taken in consideration when we're thinking about if we're increasing fund balance, okay, what is it going to be offset with to really get that true number of what it is. Does that answer your question?
So the true number is 9.5 million minus 6.8?
Yes.
Okay.
Because the 6.8 are things that did not get completed before 6:30.
But they're committed, we're going to do it. So really our surplus fund balance is 3 point.
Give or take.
Okay.
Give or take. Debt position, we have a very strong debt position here with the town of Apex. We issued $8.7 million last year for the Mason Street building, which is being constructed now, as well as Fire Station number 6. We received 1.5% interest rate on that loan for 15 years, which is excellent. Total outstanding debt of $137 million, and you see the spread of that debt. And then we have total applicable to the limit. So we do this debt calculation because with the state, we're allowed statutorily 8% of tax value. We can borrow up to 8% of tax value for debt. Our town policy is stricter than the 8% that the state allows us at 2.5%. And so you'll see the numbers there. So if we wanted to, we can borrow at $891 million. We're not going to do that. According to the town's policy, we can borrow up to $278 million, and we're at 137 now. And so we do the calculation, the legal debt margin calculation, and you'll see that I'm referencing the table in there. So once you receive the statements, you can go and look at all the numbers that you would like. We're at 1.44% of the 2.5% that counts as allowed staff to borrow. Within that calculation, we also have to include our unissued debt. So we have 2015 unissued debt for $7 million, and then 2021 of unissued bonds for $42 million, which we will, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, we are looking to issue within the next 6 months or so.
So that's not yet included in the 137 that you're showing here?
It's not in the 137, but it's in the 160. The 160 number below the 137.
Got it, thank you.
And then the debt service ratio, so debt expenditures as a percent of the actual general government expenditures is 11%, 11.0%. 0.09%. And per policy, we can go up to 12%.
I find it strange that our debt service policy, which we're coming close to, is so different from our debt to valuation policy, which we're not even remotely close to, right? But it seems like we're never going to come close to our debt to valuation policy as long as we stick to our debt servicing policy. I guess I would imagine those two numbers would sort of be closer together.
Well, that's the good thing about having a good policy, because you don't want to come close to it. You want to set it so that if you needed to get there, you could, but we want to manage our finances such that we don't have to, but it's available for us. The credit line, quote unquote, is there.
I think that line was probably set when the value of the town was way less too. Like things have gotten much more valuable in Apex than when that was. I mean, I'm not sure when that was set, but it's just you see the numbers of just the increase in the valuation is crazy high. So, and I think that debt service one lags a little bit because it's all about how much we're borrowing relative. So,
But they're related, right? Like, because our debt service ratio depends on the total size of our general fund, which is based on our total valuation. Right, so they're kind of different ways of saying the same number to a certain degree.
I guess but our tax rate also plays.
Yeah, so tax rate's the other thing.
The debt service one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And again, we have planned debt issuances within the next 6 to 12 months. And so because of the timing of this, I went ahead and put in the rolling stock when that is in the proposed budget for the 2024 that Amanda's going to be talking to you about again this evening. We have a public hearing, but just wanted to put that out there in the forefront, because had we made this presentation a couple of months ago, that would not be included in there. But because of the timing, we went ahead and included that one in this presentation. But we're looking at issuing around 17.5 million of the GO bonds that I mentioned that we have outstanding. So we would like to issue the entire 2015 that's remaining, as well as a portion of the 2021 GO authorization. While we're doing that, it makes sense to also issue 2/3 bonds, and what that allows us to do is to borrow 2/3 of what we've paid down in that previous fiscal year. So whatever we paid down in 2022 for the general obligation bonds, there's a thing called 2/3 bonds that will allow us to borrow that, and the plan would be to use that to help us to fill the Mason Street building gap, that funding gap that we need. And then we're looking to issue debt of 1.4 million for rolling stock vehicles and equipment in the 2024 cycle.
And so the 17.5 out of the 49, I think you just mentioned 42 plus 7. That's just a timing issue. So we'll see issuance of the remainder in future years as the construction progresses, and we'll see more of those bills come in.
Do we have a policy around 2/3 bond issuance? Like, do we try to hit that? That's available to us every year based on our debt service the previous year. Do municipalities tend to try to get that debt, like, and take out that money every year? Is it like, it seems like a pretty popular source of?
It makes sense when you're going to the market. We wouldn't just go to the market only to issue 2/3 bonds.
You're already going to the market.
Since we're going to the market, it makes sense to go ahead and tap into that authorization. It doesn't require voter approval because they've already voted on those bonds when they approved that authorization at whatever.
There's only 2/3 of the GO bonds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep. Yes, sir.
With the timing of these, is there flexibility? Let's say we hit the debt limit and things go haywire. Like, can these be pulled back real fast? Like, let's say the interest rates skyrocket or something because of national issues. Like, can those be can we say, hey, JK, we're not going to do this right now. We're gonna pull these bonds back and not put them out for the market?
There's no requirement that we have to issue debt. We don't ever have to issue debt if we don't want to. So we have a date that's provided to us by the LGC, the Local Government Commission. And say, for instance, it's a 3 to 4 month process to get ready just to sell the bonds.
But can you push stop like the day before?
Yes, you could.
Okay. I'm not saying we should.
You would not want to do.
I'm concerned about the future.
That is an option.
Rates and like how they're going to fluctuate, and like it'd be good if we can push stop in theory. Sure. Right.
And that's one thing, that's why we have our financial advisors, Davenport, to help to, they're looking at the market. They're watching the market every day to make sure that we're doing what we need to do and we're doing it correctly. That's why when you're looking at the 2/3 authorization, that's a recommendation coming from them, because they are in tune with what's going on. Now, they can't project, or they can't 100% project or forecast what's going to happen in the market. But then we start looking at, what about the timing? Do we need to delay? Is there a sense for delay? But a lot of that would come as we move closer to that issuance date.
So can you push stop the day before and say we're going to do it next month? And do you have to go through the process again, like months of planning to delay it?
You can delay it if needed. I'm not certain about the day before, but I know within a reasonable amount of time, you could delay.
I'd like to point out, though, that we have the AAA bond rating, right, which wasn't that big of a deal when interest rates were like 1%, 1.5%. But now that interest rates are rising, the value of that AAA bond rating is actually a lot more. We're going to get, the spread versus having a, AA or whatever the other ratings are.
And when you think about AAA, and for Councilman Zergerman, it's your credit score. So think about you have your best credit score that's out there. And an organization of our size having 2 AAA ratings is incredible. And it's going to your point, it's going to be very beneficial when we go to the market, because you're going to have 5 to 10 bidders out there that won't, because they want to invest in those bonds because they know it's a good investment. Key takeaways from those figures: it's good to be in Wake County. We have strong property tax collection. We have strong sales tax. That keeps going up, keeps growing. We have strong financial reserves being the fund balance, net position that we already spoke of, the credit rating that you mentioned, and then we have solid unrestricted cash if we ever needed to tap into those for emergencies. Council has set standards and practices and put those in place for the future, thinking about not only today, but thinking about things that lead us to the future. We have received the award for excellence in financial reporting again for the 2021 fiscal year. We look to apply and hopefully receive that again for the 22 fiscal year. Huge thanks going out to the finance department, administration, budget. During this transition that we've continued to talk about, it's been a challenge, but we've made it through it. Special thanks goes out to Keisa Arrington. She is our accounting technician, and there's no way finance would have made it without her. She has been excellent as far as just a sense of stability during uncertain times. And so with that, I'll turn it over to you guys if you have any further questions or items for discussion.
Questions or comments?
Congratulations.
Yes.
Well done.
Thank you.
One quick question. I know that in past meetings, you've mentioned that the nature of the processes that we had done in finance were, I think you termed it as very pencil and paper intensive. And I know that there's been an effort to try to make some changes in terms of software as well as other leveraging of technology in order to make things a lot easier in terms of making all of this accounting take place in a much more smoother and efficient manner. How are we on that?
We are working towards that. That is one of our goals. I don't like paper. You hear my staff say I don't like paper. That is something with the new software that we have that we're looking to implement within the next year. I think that's going to be extremely beneficial. Changing some of our processes as we've grown. I don't think our processes have grown with us. And so making some of those changes, addressing some of the things that April has mentioned. We've already had conversations and meetings with HR to kind of think through what does this need to look like? What do we need to do to be more proactive instead of reactive in some of our addressal? And then it's just a matter of time and updating, but working towards that.
I just want to add that this is incredible, but I do want to point out when we talk about stewardship and the people who came before us and really helped us get to where we are today, but also the ones who are carrying the baton now and moving us forward. So thank you so much for the work you're doing. I think Manager Crosby also has some words.
Yes, I want to say thank you to Antoine, because we are seeing the impact of him being here, and he's doing a great job. I also want to just reiterate, Keisha, I don't think that there are enough words to show appreciation for what she's done during the transition. She was really just a valuable team member, the whole finance team. But Keisha picked up a lot of extra work as we got through the transition. And then I also want to say thank you to Amanda and the budget team, because they also picked up some extra responsibility to help us through the transition. And then, of course, Sean as well. So thank you. I'm really excited to have you, Antoine, and I'm looking forward to you and our new team member in the back as we move forward. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, that completes all the presentations for tonight. We'll move now to the regular meeting agenda. You have the printed agenda in front of you. Are there any changes to the printed agenda? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Move now to public forum, and this is opportunity for the public to speak, and we will listen. And I want to remind you, if you come up, you have 3 minutes, and please present your name and address for the record. If you're speaking for a group, please advise that once you come up. So we'll move now. We have 3 speakers signed up to speak tonight, and we'll start with Phil Welch. If you would come up, sir.
Good evening, Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, and professional staff. My name is Phil Welch. Excuse me. I live at 1471 Big Leaf Loop in Apex. I'll start by thanking all of you for your active support for the recent home repair fair. Without your support, the fair would not have been possible. So thank you. I come tonight to encourage all of you to take advantage of properties, including land and buildings, offered to the town for affordable housing by our faith communities. I have given several overviews of Apex's affordable housing plan to members of our faith congregations. At the end of each talk, I've listed the ways in which those congregations could become part of the solution to Apex's continuing need for safe, decent, affordable homes for our neighbors. In addition to sending volunteers and funding to nonprofits such as Habitat, some of our local congregations are now stepping up and offering properties for sale or lease for redevelopment into mixed uses, including affordable housing. Here's some local examples that I'm aware of. First, the White Oak Foundation is building a mix of for sale and for rent townhomes for families of essential workers. Their plans include a daycare center to provide reasonably priced daycare for the children of these families. Second, Greenwood Forest Baptist Church in Cary is exploring leasing some of its property to the Caring Place for the construction of up to 30 affordable apartments for families transitioning back into the housing market. Third, and I think most impressive, Cary First Christian Church has ambitious plans to replace their church building with a multi-use structure which will include flex space on the ground floor with a senior center, church offices, and worship space, and senior affordable apartments on the upper floors. I know some council members are advocating for the use of federal ARPA funds to purchase property and make it available for development as affordable housing. I strongly support that initiative. I'm also aware that some church-owned property has recently been offered to the town for purchase. Please seriously consider this purchase and the multiple opportunities it presents. We need creative solutions to the town's critical need for affordable homes for our vulnerable seniors, veterans, essential workers, and others. We're all aware that the price of land and buildings continues to skyrocket here. We need to take advantage now of properties offered for sale in prime locations. As always, I stand ready to work with all of you to envision, plan, and implement creative new affordable housing possibilities. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Welch, for your continued advocacy in the community. Robin?
Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Robin Rame. I'm on the board of the HOA Crockett Ridge Homeowners Association, and I am here to urge the town to prioritize the construction of the sidewalk and path along the south side of Apex Barbecue between Kelly Road and Brasstown. Currently, there is no sidewalk there. There is some construction happening, but as of right now, there's no way for the kids in our neighborhood and the neighborhood surrounding kind of that area to walk to Scott's, the elementary school down the street right there. It is a dangerous road. It has some higher speeds, and it's also some curves there. And so biking is not possible either for the kids or bikers in general. We've been told that it has been requested, but it kind of is a possibility, not even till the year 2028, 2029. I could be wrong on that. But as of right now, it would take around 10 minutes for kids, maybe a little bit more to walk, to bike to this area, whereas the carpool lane will take 30 minutes and a bus ride for literally a 2-minute drive down the street is an hour for the kids. And so on the behalf of the HOA, we would like to ask that the town prioritize the continuation of the sidewalk.
Can you give us an address for us for the record?
Oh, sorry, 2300 Pilot Mountain Court, Apex.
Thank you so much for coming to speak tonight. All right, Elizabeth Stett.
Changing things up here. Elizabeth Raystett, 3113 Friendship Road. Mayor and Town Council, good evening. Tonight I brought you a screenshot of eCourts, the free online website hosted by North Carolina Courts that enables the public to search the town's lawsuits by typing Apex Town of in the search box. I'm interested in the town's eminent domain lawsuit since this council has threatened to take my property and that of my neighbors. The town and this council have tried to reassure us that we'll be treated fairly. The process has not been fair, and based on public records on eCourts, we're not encouraged. Eminent domain statute 40A-64 requires that the town pay fair market value for property that the town condemns. Yet the court filings in front of you, and that you can download and read at your convenience this weekend, show that the town is trying to take both the Lund property and the Mills property at 20% of the market value. How is 20% of the market value fair? Even worse, the court filings show that when negotiations between the town and the property owners failed, both owners accepted multi-million-dollar contracts from a developer. The very next day, the town staff advised this council, and you voted to authorize the town to take both properties via eminent domain. Perhaps the timing's coincidental, but there is a strong appearance of, oh, we didn't get our way. We're going to retaliate by condemning your property. We're going to stop you from selling your property to the developer and harass you by dragging you through the courts, costing you thousands of dollars and tying up months of your life. Whoever advised you on the property value gave you really bad advice, as 20% is categorically unfair. Would you sell your property at 20% of what it's worth? eCourts is a valuable tool providing much needed transparency into how the town handles disputes and is leveling the playing field by putting court-sworn facts into our fingertips. So when we point out concrete evidence that the town is not being fair, because we are the expert of our own properties, don't discount us. Pause, take a moment, take the blinders off. Consider that those who have advised you to date probably gave their best guidance, but that guidance may miss the mark. And in the case of Lunds and Mill, if you read the affidavits, The town is literally offering 20% less, 20% of what the developer is offering. You cannot be fair if you continue to only consider one side as you've been doing. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Stett. All right, that closes out public forum for tonight. We'll move now into our public hearing. Public hearing number 1, annexation number 753, 7612 Green Level Church Road, presented tonight by Ms. Diane Ken.
All right, good evening. This is annexation 753 at 7612 Green Level Church Road. It's located in the northern portion of our jurisdiction. It is a single-family property that is 1.74 acres. They are requesting annexation in order to get town utilities. Staff does recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, questions? Hearing none. All right, we'll go ahead and open up public hearing for comment. No one is signed up to speak, therefore we'll close it. It's back to council.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve, Mahaffey.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. We'll move now to public hearing 2, fiscal year 23-24. Annual operating budget and capital investment plan presented tonight by Ms. Amanda Grogan.
Yeah, in case you guys didn't have enough numbers tonight, we'll just throw some more out there, right?
Go for it.
All right. So our total budget, 213 million. It's 2.6 for stormwater, which is about 1%, just under 29 for water sewer, 51.8 for electric, and just under 102 for our general fund. We have 33.5 going to our project funds, and that's across general electric and water sewer. And I'll kind of get into those projects as well. But I'll be the first to say that 300,000 is going to the environmental education feasibility study. We've got 600,000 going to bike and greenway connections, over 4 million going to street and sidewalk projects, 1.85 going to the Tunstall House. In addition to substation and LED streetlight conversions on the electric side, Big Branch pump station, we've got pump station upgrades and water line connections on the water sewer side. So general fund, we're down 3.98. A lot of that is kind of tied back to what Antoine was presenting. I like how I point to him, he's not sitting there, sorry about that. What Antoine was saying with our PO carryover numbers. So that gives the impression that we're going down, but really we're kind of going up without the inclusion of that fund balance. We are proposing a tax rate of 44 cents, which is up 3. We've got 10.24 million in capital improvement and 6.42 that are going to capital project funds, which I kind of named off earlier, including the Tunstall House. With that, we do have an increase of about 8% in our debt service to 9.46. We're adding 24 new positions. That's what we've got proposed for the general fund. Solid waste collection, we'll see garbage collection fees going up 24 cents, recycling 69. The majority of that is tied to the recycling processing fee, which per our contract they can change. That goes from 75 to $1.34, and then 2.5% consumer price index increases. The vehicle tag fee is remaining flat. Just to give a different perspective, we have published this out on social media and pushed it out on social media, but then also our website, different ways to show this information. And that's the tax rate and kind of the breakdown of where the general fund tax dollars are going. So we've got the public safety taking the majority of this additional tax revenue with the positions and technology upgrades to keep officers safe and for that accountability and to better communicate with our community. We've got program expansion for students to stay engaged when school's out, and new amenities to help residents stay active, and then also this strong tie to customer service initiatives and being responsive to our community and pushing information out. One thing that we started doing a couple years ago was an annual citizen priority survey. So I recommend that anybody that did not do that this year to put on their calendar for next year. We do take that information very seriously. It is reported back to council at our budget retreat so that we're able to incorporate that feedback into building out our budget. This kind of shows the alignment with that. The three biggest areas that the public survey captured were transportation at 78.3%, public safety at 75%, and recreational cultural opportunities at 68%. So of that, you see 6.18 million. Those are kind of tied to new budget items that we've not previously had. And then as part of the entire annual operating budget, you're seeing 75 million kind of grouped into these different areas and tied back to what they have said that was their priorities.
Ms. Grogan, I just have one question about survey results. Do we present how many people actually participate in it?
We do, and we do a memo on it as well that gives you guys the demographic breakdown. And then this year, because this year we added areas, town areas.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions for you? The electric fund, we're looking at 51.8 million. So this is up 6.83%. Projects, we're looking at 5.6 million in capital improvements. We've got 1.8 for substation, and then 250,000 that will transition for a 3-year phase plan for streetlight conversion to LEDs. A lot of those projects are related to our system expansion. Over 3 million is actually allocated to that system expansion. We see debt service pretty flat at 1.2 million. We will see a drop in that next fiscal year as the 2009 debt issuance rolls off. We're proposing adding 2 new positions in January, line technicians. We're looking at 5.5% increase to the electric rates. It'd be $1.38 on the base rate. Your average customer would see about $7.36 per month in increases. So this is in line with kind of a pass-through increase from NCEMPA, and then also some additional costs that they will have to true up through that program. The town is certainly not unique in the impact of inflation and the cost that's hitting everybody right now. Water sewer, just under 29 million. We're up 3.3%. We have substantial projects coming down the pipeline. Again, a lot of that's tied to pump stations, expansion, gravity sewer, and then also the Western Wake, the start of that facility expansion. 3.77 million in debt service. We're adding 1 new personnel as our utility crews continue to build out their capacity. Water rates, we're looking at a 4% volumetric increase and no change to the base rate. Sewer, we'd be looking at a 71 or 43 cent increase to the base rate and about 30 cents per 1,000 gallon, so about 4%. New this year is the breakout of the stormwater funds. Previously, it was housed in the general fund. Then we broke it out, and it was a division under the water sewer fund, and this year it will be its own standalone fund. So we're seeing that at 2.67 million. A lot of that's tied to the evaluation of our stormwater system and then projects subsequent from that. The biggest change here is the rate to rates is the addition of a 5th tier, which is for over 5,400 square feet. Will basically be charged the same as commercial, so it'll be calculated out. So this is the municipal cost comparison to kind of see where Apex falls with all of our neighbors in terms of cost with stormwater fees, vehicle fees, water sewer, solid waste, and taxes. We did make assumptions based on the average household for Wake County, which was the $450,000 house. Water sewer is based on 4,000 gallon usage, and electric is based on 1,150 kilowatts. So you can kind of see we're kind of in that bottom tier there. So this is something that we do look at to make sure that we're not pricing ourselves out and we're not drastically different from where our neighbors fall. So, and then lastly, the cumulative effect on our, sorry.
I love that chart, by the way.
Yeah,
So-
keep that posted for a little bit longer.
I'm gonna go ahead.
Well on that.
So we'll just go back to that one.
Hang on for a second.
So we'll go ahead and make sure that we include this one in the future as well. So
No, I mean, we joke, but it's actually really important comparison, right? That
It's very useful.
Yeah.
So it's also helpful to note that when you look at the tax base between residential and commercial, the 3 communities that are lower than us at this point in time, they do have more commercial than we do. And so that drastically changes your tax base and your revenue sources on that side.
Have you matched up the density of the communities versus the rates too? I presume Morrisville is way more dense than, especially the residential part is way more dense than Apex.
We have not, but I will add that to the analysis.
Yeah, I mean, I think providing services to less dense places is harder, I think, in general.
I think it's more that Morrisville has a massive commercial tax base.
Well, I think it's both things probably. A lot of higher density and non-residential tax base. Yeah, both.
Sure.
I think Brett just wants access to the Tableau dashboard, and so he can just figure this out.
I will send you an Excel file.
Okay.
I think
Yours to play with.
the next slide is the best slide.
So this shows the cumulative effect on our residents. So the solid waste combined, you're looking at a change of 93 cents per month. Water 85, sewer $1.93, electric $7.36. We have no change on the stormwater side for the majority of our average residents. So your total would be $11.07 per month. For Apex, our average home value is actually $400,000. So you'd be looking at about $120 a year or $10 a month. Do we have any questions?
Questions for Ms. Grogan? Comment, good job. Thank you.
Again, this has been a really long process. We're coming near the end of our budget season. I know you've personally put a lot of work in this.
Well, we've got a great team. It takes a village, and we've got a good village. And Antoine's been amazing. And I joke because, you know, when he was talking about documentation and stuff, I actually forgot to attach a file. And not even 2 seconds later, he was on me. So I was like, I don't think we have to worry about that in the future. So.
But all through the process, you personally and the rest of the staff have been very helpful. We've had, this is 5th or 6th time we've had a presentation on the budget throughout the year. We're coming near the end, and you've always been there with all the information we need and get stuff back to us when we ask questions. I really appreciate it.
Well, I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
And you're not just responsive to us, but you know, what you're doing is really helping to educate all those around us about what's going on. I mean, I love the dollar being broken down and the explanation about where these three, you know, what's the 3 cents going to, because that's the common sense explanation of what we're trying to get out there when it comes to the budget. So really appreciate your hard work on this.
So we're always open to new suggestions on different ways we can show people information and make it easily digestible. So thank you guys.
Good job. Thanks. All right. So we'll go ahead and open up public hearing for this tonight so we can hear from our community. And we have one person sign up tonight, and it's Elizabeth Stitt.
Elizabeth Stitt, 3113 Friendship Road. So a year ago, I showed up thinking that, hey, I could get turn lanes for Friendship Road. You know, it couldn't be that difficult. I thought I started a couple months in advance and I could get it. And last year was like, oh, no, too late. Budget was already pre-baked. So I said, okay, you know, I'll try it again. And I went through the entire budget process with you guys. I was the only person at the first finance meeting. I was one of 3 at the second finance meeting. I could not make the workshop, but I watched it online twice because it's hard to listen when you're multitasking at home. And I shared this out with my network with a lot of people. And what I was really surprised was, even though I kept taking information, they're like, it doesn't matter. And it does matter. And to what you were saying, Amanda and team have done a lot of work. You guys have done a lot of work. People don't feel like when they raise their hands that it matters. I don't have my turn lanes. The neighborhood doesn't have their sidewalk. You know, last meeting, there was a neighborhood, I'm drawing a blank on it, that doesn't have their greenway. When you look at the general fund balance, there is money there. And in your budget document from last year and the proposed this year, it states that money can be used. Maybe you don't use a lot of it. Maybe use a portion of it to offset the tax increase, or maybe do some of these small projects. But at some point, what do you do to get people engaged? Or is the goal not to have people engaged? You know, I know that you guys want people engaged. We got to do something different if you want people to show up. I should not be the only person on this list. I should not have been the only person at that first finance meeting and one of 3 of the second. And I don't even pay Apex taxes. But yet I'm invested in what happens to my community because you guys are my community, even though I am not in the town limits. I'm in your ETJ, and what you do impacts all of us. So I'm more than happy to try to figure out how we get the word out more, but I should not be here standing alone tonight. Not with all the work that you guys have done the past year. People simply don't think you guys care. I know you do. So I would like for it to be a goal, despite the fact that we have a lot of things we're working on. I would like to try to figure out how we actually get people engaged this coming year to where people really start feeling like they are a part of this community, that they have a say in what's happening. And that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Stett. All right, that closes. Thank you for that, Alan. That closes the public hearing for this item, and it's back to council members for discussion. I will say that, I mean, I would like to see more people engaged in budget process and a lot of things we're doing, and I think that's a work in progress to try to get people involved, but this is particularly important before we make decisions, so I do agree with that assessment.
I'll say I'm trying. If you look at my social media, I've made probably 70, 80 posts about the budget. I go through page by page, trying to see if something sparks an interest. You know, I thought maybe people don't care about the document overall, but maybe that one line about one project I might care about. It's tough, and I do think we definitely need to keep working on it.
I think part of it too is, you know, in part of the engagement process, even though it's not a technical part of our budget process, is the survey. You know, we get a lot of our guidance from what the community wants through that community engagement survey. So even though it's not technically part of our yearly budget process, it's helpful to know what people's priorities are. So we can at least engage part of that money in those specific areas.
And it's also one of these things where, you know, when I look at what we're seeing in this budget, I think it's really important to not just think about the budget as a singular document, but as part of the larger process. I was speaking with another one of the residents last week. We were talking about how he comes to council meetings, or he'll watch the council meetings, and he'll say, wow, the rezonings are boring. But, and I would somewhat agree. However, it's in those rezonings where the little details come to matter. Because if you look at how we have this budget currently structured, we're looking at 2/3 of those pennies going towards public safety. But if you look at the public input, you'll see that they wanted a vast majority of that on parks, greenways, and things of that nature. So when it comes to what we're doing in our public hearings and a lot of the conversations that we're having with those who are applicants, is that cost of the greenways, of the trees, that's a cost that is now being borne, for the most part, by a lot of those who are the applicants. So that we can take more of that money and use it on things that, quite frankly, for a while, we've just kind of neglected. You know, this increase in public safety means that we're going to be able to help address some of those issues on Richardson Road, which we heard about last session. We're going to be able to help deal with things such as putting SROs into schools. And we don't even need to talk about the number of things that we've seen in terms of the tragedies our nation has faced. We want to address them before they come to Apex. But we're also talking about putting in things like making sure that we've got proper fire response and making sure that we're getting these things done. So it is a difficult balance in trying to make sure that we're using that dollar appropriately. Because the one thing that we also recognize very clearly is there are a lot of people in our town who are struggling check to check. So when it comes to even increasing a tax rate by a penny, we recognize that that is painful and can be the difference between somebody having the opportunity to have a meal the next month or whether someone is getting evicted. So we recognize the gravity of what's taking place in this budget. I'd love to see, as all of us would like to see more participation, more folks showing up, more folks talking to us. And I think that, as a continuing goal, I think, Ms. Smith, you're right. That's something that we need to continue to press for, because it's those voices that make a huge difference when we're talking about how we're going to best maintain their standard of living, their safety, their water, their power, their trash, but most importantly, our community. Democracy is hard, people. It is hard, but it is a participation sport.
I do want to say, to add on to the public participation piece, it's multimodal, right? It's not just here tonight. We've tried many new and novel ways this year. And if you've been to one of our festivals this year, you'll notice we got booths set up now. And we're out there for hours at a time asking people to talk to us about the budget, about other items. And I think Alan, our clerk, had a good idea this year, and you or someone on your staff, that we got some swag. And to get the good swag, you got to give us some feedback about the budget. Then you get a piece of, like, the hat or the bag or whatever. So we're out there and we're trying. I want you guys to know. And I appreciate you guys who showed up here, but I don't want anyone in this room to feel like this is the only way we've tried to reach out. We're trying different ways, and we're open to any suggestions people have to get more people involved.
And that's part of the reason why we requested being at festivals and being engaged that way, is so that we could have more interaction with the public and saying, hey, what do you want? Tell us, because we're here, we're asking for it. We want you engaged. We want you to look at our maps and say, hey, this doesn't look right, or hey, I would like to add this. That is part of the reason we're out there, part of the reason we're saying, hey, come talk to us, please, because we want to know.
I wanted to say real quick, Audra and I have been on here 5 years, and there have been times when there's been zero, not one, but zero people speak out. But one thing that I've been really happy that we've done is we've established some metrics for safe routes to schools, kind of addressing the one of the public forum comments. We have a master plan that we just passed for the Parks and Rec, and within those efforts, there's been metrics that have been objective scoring of these projects. So even if we're not hearing from the folks during budget time, in theory, some of the objectively best projects are the ones that are getting funded. And I think in some ways it's actually better than hearing a bunch of people come and they're coming out for maybe a moderate project, whereas nobody's showing up for the really high impact project. I mean, frankly, I think you balance both those things, but I think you do the high impact one 9 out of 10 times. So those metrics I've been really happy with, and maybe the devil's in the details about what's on the metrics and how those are done. And I spend a lot of time on those things, make sure I agree with how the scoring is done. But I think it's helped us put our dollars to the best place possible.
Yeah, I think for sidewalks, we have like a $90 million, $100 million worth of a backlog for projects that are all scored and organized. And we do them, I wouldn't say completely in priority order, because there's a certain opportunity cost you have to consider. But every year, I mean, there's more than enough there to keep us busy forever.
But the Crockett Ridge one, I think, has been on there and scored. And
I don't know this. Yeah, it's pretty high, right?
I don't remember the scoring, but it's not been at least the top ones that we funded in the last couple of years. I know that.
Did a lot around Bauckham, but like routes to school is like a huge bonus part of that scoring. So
right, I agree. I think part of it in that particular case is the future development potential that will end up building it. I think that one is the Crockett Ridge example is going to be a demerit on that a little bit. And so, but we have this objective thing that I think our money is put to the highest and best use possible. And so that's in the budget, kind of implicit now, which I'm happy about.
That's a very good. That's what I meant by opportunity cost. Is like on the south of Barbecue Road, there's a huge parcel that appears to might develop soon. And if we go ahead and a developer will build that for us as part of the project if that gets developed. So,
which is why the Kelly Road project was done, was because that neighborhood was already built out. And so that was one that you wouldn't get that. The ranking would be more favorable in that case. But anyway, I think that staff's done a great job on these rankings, and the schools one I think was fantastic, and I'm glad we're putting some money in this budget toward that.
I'm not sure if I can top any of this. I do want to call out, some of the comments that Councilmember Graham and Haffey just made. First of all, we have a backlog of capital improvement projects that is, probably coming up on $200 million, and only, so many $1 million to work with annually, right, from the capital budgets to address all of that. So it is walking that tightrope between what do we want to do, what can we do, and the corresponding tax dollars that we want to collect, right? So we felt very strongly that 3 pennies was the maximum increase that we wanted to put on our residents this year, for the reasons that Councilmember Gray just outlined, right? Not everybody is made out of money, right? And we got to consider those that have more of a challenge, making ends meet. And so we felt strongly about the tax increase being limited to those 3 pennies on the $100 valuation. But that also sets the limit of what you can do in terms of new capital expenditures, right? And so that's kind of the tightrope that we're trying to walk here, with all the input from our residents as we're starting to collect it. And frankly, I feel that we're getting a little bit better at it. But I do agree. I would like to see more people speaking and being vocal about their needs.
And I do want to add one more thing, Councilman Gray. You talked about people that are facing hardships and they're trying to really make things work. I know one of the things I really want to see going forward is looking at the amount of people who are delinquent in some of our electric bills or whatever, water bills, so we can get a better snapshot, okay, and make a decision of how high we're going to raise the tax rate, because a lot of people are impacted with what's going on today. So I do want to see that going forward. Any other discussion? Yes.
There's actually, I don't want to dig in the details of the budget right now at the last hour, but to that point, something that concerns me is our reconnection fees, because I think what happens is a lot of people fall behind, and then to catch up, then they got to pay another fee on top of that. It's something that was on my list of details to check into for our budget. I don't know if maybe a little late this year, but is that rate appropriate? Could it be lowered? How does it compare to other municipalities? I think it presents a hardship for people. They fall behind. I don't like things where it's like a negative reinforcement loop, so.
Maybe it's a good reminder. My understanding is the COVID Western Wake Crisis Ministries utility assistance thing is there's still money in that. Yeah. So if people are in need, I think they should reach out to avoid cutoffs.
And we have the Apex Cares program. That's people that do experience hardships and need some help with maintaining their properties. Right. We do set some money aside every single year in our plan to help those people as well. So we don't see a whole lot of uptake on it though. So that's one of those things where we have the ability to help more people.
Good point. Any other discussion before we move on? All right. Thank you so much. Thank you. All right.
Well, final vote next week?
What's that?
Final vote next week, guys?
Next week.
Oh, sorry. Next meeting. That's very different than next week. Sorry.
Yeah. I was like, where
yes.
you going with that?
Yeah, I was way out there. I don't know, man. Yeah.
All right, moving on now to public hearing 3, right-of-way road closure request, portion of Old Raleigh Road, presented tonight by Alan Coleman.
Good morning. Oh, good evening, everyone. Not good morning. Tonight, public hearing number 3 is a right-of-way closure on a portion of Old Raleigh Road at the intersection of Laura Duncan Road, extending to Old Mill Village Drive. In your agenda packet, there is a map that has been included. In 2016, the town council adopted at that time a policy on closing of public right-of-ways, streets, roads and alleys, and directed the town clerk's office to kind of facilitate that. Over the years, it's kind of switched between the town clerk and administration. A request from Andorra Enterprises, LLC, on behalf of Primrose Apex Early Childhood Development Center. A request was received to permanently close all portions of the right-of-way of Old Raleigh Road. The North Carolina Department of Transportation was contacted since this location was marked as the DOT right-of-way and DOT's responsibility. However, in consultation with NCDOT, and you'll see the letter in your packet, this subject area was abandoned under a TIP project in 1993. Therefore, the request was returned to the town. In reviewing this request, it was routed through the town's technical review committee, or what we would call TRC. That's comprised of many departments, including our transportation and infrastructure department, planning and public safety. All reviewed the submitted request and recommends council to approve. On April 11th, as you may recall, council voted to adopt a resolution of intent signifying an intent to close the right-of-way referenced above, or in the attached map. Notice of the adopt resolution was published in the News and Observer for 4 consecutive weeks pursuant to the general statutes, and copies of the affidavits are included in your agenda packet. If you will allow me, I will allow the applicant to further continue this presentation.
Good evening. My name is Jessica Vickers, and I'm counsel for Andoria Enterprises. And with me this evening is Carrie Stockman, who's the sole owner and member of Andoria. Mr. Coleman did a fine job explaining sort of the nuts and bolts of this request. It is a request to permanently close a right-of-way section running through a property parcel that's commonly known as 614 Old Mill Village Drive. It's as you go out here and take a right, it's just down the road. But it's a isolated right-of-way that when the NCDOT restructured the roads in 1993 still exists on that parcel. And so we are making a request pursuant to section 160A-299 of the North Carolina General Statutes for that right-of-way to be permanently closed. I want to give you a little bit of context too, just about Andoria. So Mr. Coleman mentioned that Ms. Stockman runs and operates Primrose Early Childhood Center, and her current location where she operates is out on Highway 64 at the intersection of Laura Duncan Road. So this property we're talking about this evening with this right-of-way is just a few blocks in from Highway 64. And the school she's currently in, she's been running and operating since 2015 when it was built, so it's still a relatively new school. Unfortunately, has gone through a condemnation with NCDOT. It's a full taking. And so this is the property that she located and purchased when trying to find a new property in close proximity to her current school where she could service still the same children and families that she works with now. And so construction has started, and we are hopeful that the new school is going to be completed late summer of this year. But in the financing process, one of the requirements that the bank has is that this right-of-way be closed, just to protect and have clean title to the collateral. And so that's sort of the impetus behind this request. I'll show you here, and this is in your packet, so I'll try to be really brief because I'm sure you have a lot of information about this already. But this is a satellite image of the property. This is obviously prior to the construction that's gone on, about the 6 or 8 months building the new school. But as you can see here, it's a vacant parcel. It has no pavement or infrastructure or anything on it. This is the survey that was recently completed in 2020. The right-of-way that we are talking about this evening is in the highlighted section here in yellow. You can see by looking at this abandoned right-of-way doesn't connect any roads or ingress or egress. It does not connect any surrounding property. It's an isolated right-of-way within this parcel that has simply been abandoned by DOT for the past 30 years and not maintained. And then even here, this language here in orange highlights that it's been abandoned for that length of time. And so going back to the satellite image, this is the area of the yellow highlight that we now see. There's no pavement, no infrastructure, no asphalt. NCDOT has consented to this closure. When we started this process, we went to them first. It took a little while, so that's why we're a little delayed in this process, but finally had them complete their review. They consent to this closure. And so again, we're here this evening requesting, pursuant to the statute, that council take a vote and approve permanent closure of this right-of-way. This will complete financing requirements with the bank that's funding the new school on this property, and hopefully ensure the longevity of this school on this property for many years to come, to continue to serve the families and children that it does in the community. Here is a picture of the current school. You've probably driven by it, moving along quite quickly, and then this is sort of a view towards completion. So I'm here this evening to answer any questions, as is Ms. Stockman and my colleague Joe Bass, who's the real estate guru here. So if there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them, but thank you for your time and attention to this.
Thank you, Ms. Vickers.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. Any questions?
I'm a little curious as to how we got here. Like, was this missed during the initial due diligence, or did you not think it was an issue, or?
So it was a little bit of a bumpy process buying this property. Ultimately, the decision had to be made with this not being resolved. Are we going to go through and buy it or not? The decision was made with a lot of angst and heartache about whether to go forward, but knowing that this property was one of the few in this proximity to be able to build a new school to replace the old one, made the decision to go through. And so that's why this is happening after the closing. So we have been persistent first with DOT. That's really where the delay was and what held us up. We've moved through the process and gotten here today. But it was an assumed risk when the property was purchased in January 2022.
I'm curious, not a lawyer, but why is this coming to us exactly? Like if it's a DOT right away and they're consenting to the closure, and so why does it's not a town right away? We couldn't build a road there tomorrow, could we? Besides the fact there's a building there, but I mean, like, in terms of like an illegal matter, like I don't understand why it's coming to us at all.
So it is within the town limits.
Because it's in the town limits.
Within the town limits.
So the town has to consent to any.
And the statute provides that it's the town that goes through the process to formally approve and close the right of way. As a precursor to this, certainly needed to consult with DOT on that. They've made their position pretty clear that it's simply been abandoned, and they have no intent to use it in the future. But pursuant to the statute, that's why we're here. And to the extent Mr. Bass has anything further to comment on legal specifics, I'm happy to let him jump up on that.
I think it's probably kind of a public policy decision because your constituents would be most interested in being heard as opposed to DOT at a state level. I think that's a big reason why. Because if it were in the county commissioners would be responsible.
So do we as a town still need to go to DOT to finalize the process, or this is it?
This is it. This is the final step. So I think in your packet, there's a short process, a policy that the town adopted. And I mean, we're down at like number 8 or 9 in that. So it is tonight a vote from the town council to approve permanent closure of this right of way. That's an old portion of Old Raleigh Road. So this is the final step.
Who goes down to the.
Long awaited.
Who goes and records the new plat without the U?
And there will be a recordation following a vote, assuming it's favorable to us.
All right, any other questions? Hearing none. All right, we'll go ahead and open up public hearing for this item. No one has signed up for it, so we'll close it and it's back to council. Is there a motion? Motion, Greg,
Second.
beat you. Second, all right. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I'll just say, I mean, obviously, we need to close it. Like, if the town issued permits for this building and they started to build on it, it would be a very, like, if we intended to maintain the right of way, I think the time to do that would have been a lot earlier in the process. I was just interested in how we got here. It's an interesting case. We don't see many of these.
That's true.
Didn't mean to scare you guys. I don't know if you
Actually risk averse.
Yeah.
All right, have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passed unanimously. Thank you so much. Good to see you, Ms. Stockman. All right, public hearing 4. Rezoning case 23CZ05 Pleasant Park. Jim Cowles.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. June Cowles, Senior Planner. And tonight we have a rezoning 23CZ05 Pleasant Plains. Pleasant Park is located southwest area of Apex, south of Old US Highway 1 and west of 540 Highway. And as you can see, the Pleasant Park is under construction, almost complete. Currently zoned rural residential to the south, and west is rural residential, and a parcel to the north. And then to the north is Tech Flex conditional zoning, and to the northwest is a planned unit development. So the applicant is requesting conservation buffer conditional zoning in order to be consistent with the other town park zoning districts and its 2045 land use map, which is park, public, or private classification. Also to increase the number of permitted colors to 6, not including black or white. For the wayfinding signage, colors will correspond to the different field locations and to increase the height and/or sign area for the wayfinding and monument signage. So 10 feet high for the wayfinding sign, consistent with the Town of Apex wayfinding signs, and 7 feet 9 inches for the monument sign. So the majority of the sign you can see is below the 6 feet in height, and only the column is above the 6 feet. And the maximum sign area of 124 square feet. So the 92-acre park includes some topography. It's pretty large, so just getting some location signs, wayfinding signs coordinated with the colors. So the proposed height and sign area of the wayfinding signs, monument sign that fit the site. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on February 27th, 2023, and the meeting report is in your packet. Proposed uses are park active, passive, utility minor, botanical garden, greenway. The rezoning conditions 1 through 4, those are regarding the signage. And then conditions 5 through 11 are regarding environmental advisory board recommendations. So Park and Rec staff was able to meet the conditions on the approved site plan. So the planning board held a public meeting on May 8th, and they unanimously recommended approval with the conditions as proposed by the applicant. Planning staff recommends approval with the conditions as offered by the applicant. And the rezone is consistent with the town's comprehensive and other applicable plans. The proposed rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because it will implement stricter environmental conditions than the UDO requires. Update the zoning for this parcel to be consistent with other town parks, and will improve the health and wellness of residents by providing additional recreational programs and open space for residents. So happy to answer any of your questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Who's your applicant? I'm kidding, I'm kidding.
Yeah, I had a question. I was reading through the neighborhood meeting minutes, and there was a discussion or a question at least about that parcel to the east that the guy said was separated from his other parcel or her other parcel by 540. Yeah, that one. And there's like follow-up that was said there might be follow-up on this as part of preserving it or whatever. Can you describe that? If there's any follow-up, and was that kind of just the end of it? If not?
So yes, we did follow up, and we have requested an appraisal and some other information about the value of that parcel.
Okay, good.
And what we could or may be able to do, probably or not with it, but.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
All right.
And
Any other questions, Ms. Rinke or Ms. Cowles? Hearing none. All right, we'll open up public hearing for this item. No one has signed up. We'll close public hearings back to council for possible motion.
Second.
All right, motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you so much. We move now to public hearing 5. Rezoning case 23CZ06 Hunter Street Park Edition. Joshua Kilman.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
This is rezoning case 23CZ06 Hunter Street Park Edition. It is located at 1250 Ambergate Station. This property is located on the northern edge of the downtown, just beyond the current boundary of what we know as Hunter Street Park. The area of the property subject to this rezoning is 1.7 acres and is located on the north end of the town-owned Hunter Street Park, as stated before, and it's just south of the ample storage facility. The area is currently wooded on the east and western sides of the property with a grassy center. The property is currently zoned Plan Unit Development, conditional zoning. The adjacent zonings to the north are light industrial. To the west is a mixture of high-density single-family residential and office and institutional. To the south is the existing Hunter Street Park, which is zoned conservation buffer. And to the east is the Plan Unit Development conditional zoning, which includes Thales Academy slightly to the northeast. The applicant is proposing to rezone this property to conservation buffer conditional zoning. The 2045 land use map identifies this property as park, public, or private. The proposed rezoning to conservation buffer conditional zoning is consistent with that land use classification. The applicant conducted a neighborhood meeting on February 10th, 2023, and a copy of the neighborhood report is in your packet. The Environmental Advisory Board held a pre-application meeting for this rezoning on February 16th, 2023. The zoning conditions suggested by the EAB are located on page 3 of your staff report, along with the applicant's response to each condition, and they have added all 3 conditions that were proposed. A full list of zoning conditions and uses can be found on page 2 of the staff report, and the applicant is looking to provide a public active park and not a passive park on this part of the property. The 2045 land use map classifies the subject property again as park, public, or private. The proposed rezoning to conservation buffer conditional zoning is consistent with that land use classification. The proposed rezoning is reasonable and in the public interest because it will implement stricter environmental conditions than the UDO requires, update the zoning to this parcel to be consistent with other town parks, and will provide flexibility to the Town of Apex Parks, Recreation, and Cultural Resources Department to increase the services provided to residents. Planning staff recommends approval with the conditions offered by the applicant, and myself and the applicant are here to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Killian. Wonderful job. Appreciate the presentation. All right. Any questions?
I do have a question. So during the planning board meeting, some of the residents across the street came over, and one of the issues that they raised was potential unauthorized crossing of Salem Street at that location. Have we looked at that any further to see if we can discourage that? There was talk about fencing or any other maybe mitigating kind of devices to prevent people from crossing over Salem Street there.
Yeah, so that fencing would be part of the site plan approval process. Now, the town applicant is looking to provide a 50-foot buffer right there to buffer from the park to the railroad or the non-existent railroad crossing that people use there. So that is part of those zoning conditions.
My understanding is we are fixing up the intersection with sidewalks, right? In this current budget, is that right?
Which intersection?
Hunter and
Ambergate Station?
Between Ambergate and Salem.
Yes, the Downtown Safe Routes to School
Yes.
program is currently reviewing that to put in those sidewalks.
Right, so that, in theory, might encourage them to take the actual crossing.
Between Ambergate and...
Yeah.
Right in front of the skate park and across the tracks.
Yeah, it's gonna be on the northern side and the southern side right here. We already have the crossing provided.
Right.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
So hopefully, the crossword's supposed to, right? I mean, I would.
I mean,
there's not great ways, if kids are coming down from, say, Thales or coming across, they're going to end up crossing the railroad tracks. Because they're not going to walk all the way down to the skate park and back up, and they're not going to walk all the way up to the Peakway and over. So, that's just kids.
I'm thinking, the people that are in that neighborhood, right? Like their streets are basically coming out right across from that park. It's like it's going to be hard to discourage that unless.
And what about the kids getting hit by a train? Like,
right.
Yeah.
But in fairness to the applicant, it's not a unique thing to this zoning, but it's an issue that's been there. It's going to be there.
It came up in the planning board discussion, and so I figured see if there was any follow through on that.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. All right, we'll open up public hearing for this item. No one signed up tonight to speak. We'll close public hearing for comment, and it's back to council for possible motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I think I heard, I'll give you this one.
Thank you.
All right.
First one is tonight.
These guys are like,
You need one.
I don't want to seem too eager.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Wonderful job. Thank you. All right. All right. Yes, new faces. First one of many. All right, public hearing 6, Unified Development Ordinance UDO amendments, May 2023. Ms. Diane Kent.
All right, good evening. The first amendment, excuse me, was requested by Town Council. It's in regard to the double gate for dog parks and private recreation areas. It would be required anywhere that a dog park is proposed. We do not require dog parks in any development, but if there's one provided, they must provide a double gate. And that is the only one that I will be presenting. The rest are all EV related, and Jenna Schaus is here as our expert to help you through these changes.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I'll be presenting amendment number 2 to the UDO. These are amendments that were requested by the Planning Committee of Town Council as well as from planning staff. So these are amendments to section 8.3.11, electric vehicle charging spaces, in order to increase the amount of required electric vehicle or EV charging spaces for apartments as requested by the Planning Committee of Town Council. Additional amendments to this section are proposed by planning staff in order to increase the amount of required EV charging spaces and EV ready spaces for certain uses and to modify the standards for EV charging spaces. So this first slide, looking at the first few amendments, sections 1 and 2 are to expand the applicability of the EV ready spaces, and then section 3 eliminates the existing cap on the maximum required EV spaces. Currently it's set at 10 and we're proposing to eliminate that cap. So this table displays the electric vehicle charging space requirements by use. And first I'll start with multifamily or apartment, as this came from the Planning Committee of Town Council. And the proposal is to increase the minimum number of required EV charging spaces for this use from 3% to 10%. And then to require that 10% of all required motor vehicle spaces be EV ready. And by EV ready, I mean that the conduit as well as the raceway is installed, and that either an outlet or a receptacle above ground is installed, so that if at a future date the actual EV charger could be plugged in at that parking space. And then for the remaining uses highlighted on this table, the proposal is to add a requirement that 15% of all the required motor vehicle spaces be EV ready. And then for hotel or motel use, the proposal is to increase the minimum EV charging space requirement from 3% to 5%. And we highlighted the hotel and the multifamily and apartment uses because people typically charge, studies have found that EVs are typically charged where people park for a long period of time and overnight, similar to how you would do a cell phone. So highlighting those two uses to up the requirement. And in this one, there are no substantive changes to the accessible electric vehicle charging spaces requirement. This is really just to improve clarity. And then there are 3 proposed changes to the electric vehicle charging space standards. The first is number 6, is related to number 6. It's the electric vehicle charging equipment shall be placed at least 5 feet instead of 10 feet from any newly planted tree. And then 10 and 11 are new standards. So number 10 is that the outer edge of the electric vehicle charging equipment shall not be illuminated. And you may have seen some in other towns where, for example, the Tesla chargers have that white or red lighting along the edge of it. And since we're increasing the EV requirement for a number of uses, we want to make sure that that doesn't cause any negative aesthetic effects. So addressing that in the standards. And then for number 11, for the use multifamily or apartment, electric vehicle charging spaces and EV ready spaces shall be dispersed near buildings on the site. And the purpose of this is to ensure that all the EV spaces aren't clustered around one building, that people can use them in different areas. Cool. So that's all I have, but I'm here to answer any questions that you may have about these proposed amendments. Oh, and excuse me, planning staff recommend approval, and at their May 8th meeting, planning board unanimously recommended approval of these amendments as well.
Thank you, Ms. Schaus. Any questions from council?
Where did the percentages come from?
So a mix of sources. So Holly Springs recently updated or created an electric vehicle charging space requirement and EV ready requirement. So that, in combination with the American Planning Association recently released a document called Zoning Practices, something to the effect of addressing upcoming EV challenges. So a combination of what we found in there and that the American Planning Association's work when they researched different UDOs, and then Holly Springs. And then we kind of discussed among staff what is appropriate for Apex, thinking about the context of our jurisdiction.
How did the Holly Springs documentation compare to that nationwide study?
I can show you, I have Holly Springs, I printed their ordinance just in case. So what we have proposed is very similar. So they divide it into residential and then all other uses. And so for all other uses, is this kind of what you're asking for? Okay. So for all other uses, if 20 to 50 spaces are provided in a single development, 10% of them shall be EVSE ready, and EVSE is electric vehicle supply equipment ready. So the equivalent for us is just EV ready. And then if 50 or more spaces are provided in a single development, 5% of all spaces, shall be EVSE, and then an additional 15% shall be EVSE ready. So there are places where theirs is higher than us, but we have an equivalent, there are places where their EV charging spaces requirement is higher, for example, because we have 3% for some uses and they have 5%, and then we have an equivalent EV ready.
Right. Why do we keep our percentage of EV enabled at 3%?
Instead of raising to 5%?
Instead of raising to 5 or 20 or...
I think we discussed the cost is kind of one big thing, and we thought that at this point to install the spaces, the cost is something to note, but having that EV ready kind of gives the flexibility if they want to in the future take on the cost that they see a need for their customers or their residents to live there to go in and add the spaces, because we more so of doing it now since it costs a lot for retrofitting. But I see what you're saying. Right.
Yeah, and so that I'm sorry. It's also because of the research we did where people are charging overnight. So that's why we looked at increasing our apartments and hotel. Commercial uses, folks are not going to be charging, fully and as long, because there's just not that much time when you're running into a Target or a restaurant.
Yeah.
So here's where I'm coming from. I don't think we're aggressive enough here. To your point, like retrofitting is really, really expensive, right? Putting a pipe in the ground when the dirt is already bare, right, is cheap. So 15% EV readiness, we know that 10 years from now, virtually every vehicle sold will be electric. Plus we're in Wake County, with a much higher per capita income than anywhere else in the, not anywhere, but, large portions of the nation, right? So I think that the national study does not necessarily represent the area that we live, right? And the electrical vehicle use that we already see in town, plus what we can reasonably expect. So I would like to see the minimum EV readiness much higher than 15%, to accommodate for that future, right? And not have to dig up parking lots in order to put vehicle chargers in at a later date. And I think we can be more aggressive than 3%. Yes, there's a cost associated, I get that, but the developers that want to do business in town and build these properties have a vested interest in accommodating that electrical vehicle use, because it makes their properties more attractive. So I don't think that the percentages shown here are reflecting needs of the town today, or 5 years from now, 10 years from now.
Planning committee at?
Planning committee discussed this a bit. I think there may be some differences. I posited that I tried to think about 10 years from now, and my thought was, yes, there'll be a lot more EVs around, but presumably they'll be able to go farther on a charge to, like, way farther maybe. And so the need for kind of short duration increases, I thought, was much less important than like the apartments and the hotels where, they're going to be able to go 500 miles on a charge, hopefully, and they're not going to be able to need to charge that often, except for overnight.
And I'll agree to that, right? So the example that Ms. Kitten just has offered, you're not going to plug in your vehicle if you're, stopping in Target for 10 minutes, right? But certainly those overnight stays, hotels, and certainly multifamily residential, you're going to see much more usage of those chargers. And I don't really, I appreciate the gesture and then the increase here. I just don't think it goes far enough.
So let me pipe in. I agree with you 100%. In the planning committee, we had some discussion about this, and there was disagreement, and this was sort of the compromise amount that we came down to. I think the argument was made specifically for uses, that it was more important for multifamily because the overnight thing. We had a discussion about other commercial uses, and I was advocating for making a more across-the-board increase, and I think the counter-argument there, let Brett jump in, like as I said, people weren't charged necessarily when they go to the grocery store, so it wasn't necessary there, and it would provide more of a cost. So, when I brought up that the numbers were higher, and this is sort of through discussion at the planning committee, it's what we came down to.
A follow-up to just in the back of my head always is like, Laura, do we have authority to make this regulation by the state? Because when it's ambiguous, I'm always nervous that like going all in means we're gonna get knocked down.
I'd have to research specifically our authority to require these, and I'm not sure that you'd want me to give legal advice in open session concerning the same.
Presumably more municipalities doing it does, in theory, is a good sign though, right? Because when we started, we were the second one in the whole state, I think, that did that after Davidson, NC, that did this. So we were front runners in some of this, but Holly Springs now, I didn't know that until this meeting. So that presumably is a good sign, right, for not getting knocked down. Okay.
Other discussion?
Yeah, as an EV driver, I'll tell you that I think I like the increase where you're going to be sleeping, because that's your center of gravity. You want to have it where you're going to sleep. And I think one of the limiting factors when it comes to adoption is when you have apartment complexes, if you don't have a place to charge your car, you're not likely to purchase the car, and you're not likely to live in that apartment complex. So I think the number, I'd love to see it higher, but I think this is a step in the right direction. So I think that, the focus is on the right areas where you're going to sleep. That's where you want to charge.
I would also like to see those numbers increased. So both for the multifamily apartment and the hotel or motel uses here. Because those, like I said, you spend overnights there. Those are places where you need things to charge. And knowing, I just recently purchased a newer vehicle, and that, they've got a lot of EV vehicles on the lots right now that are waiting for people to purchase them. We don't have the infrastructure in place to handle all of it, especially for trips. So the more infrastructure that we have, the better. So I would be in favor of increasing those numbers as well.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Is it are you referring to the EV ready or the EV charging, or both?
Both.
Okay. For the overnight uses as well. Okay.
For the overnight or across the board for the commercial? Because I think the discussion kind of went down two lanes. There's the number we have
To me,
for.
it's the overnight stuff. That matters more than anything else. I think those numbers should be higher in general than the other requirements. I think the other requirements are fine. I think all of those numbers seem reasonable to me, because you're right, nobody's going to plug in for 10 minutes of running into Target. But they live in an apartment, they're certainly going to need chargers available. So yeah, I would like to see those numbers increase.
So you have any response to that? Yeah.
Is that something, I guess that's a question for council. Is there interest in adopting this and then we go back and look at raising, or do you want to pause and it to come back later? How would you like to move forward?
I would just like to interject. We have no other suggestion. This was based on the information we could find out there in the world. So if you all have numbers, you just need to tell us what you want it changed to, because we will not have a different recommendation. This is what we found with our neighboring community and a nationwide search that was done through the American Planning Association. So I'm not sure You know, we don't know where to go.
Okay, so I'm gonna suggest a number.
Okay.
All right, so I'm gonna suggest a higher percentage for EV ready, which is gonna be about 20%. I'm gonna suggest a increase of the number of required EV charging spaces to 15 instead of 10.
So you're just talking about apartments right now?
Apartments, that was for the apartments. For the hotel, I'm going to suggest increasing our EV-ready spaces to 20%, and the others of 5%, right? Up to 10 for the number of required EV charging spaces.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Well, we're gonna do all of it together. I mean, we have two items. Oh, man. Yeah.
So
So we gotta figure that out.
Let's separate them.
Okay, yeah, can we separate and let's vote on amendment number 1 first?
Okay. Yes, we got to get there, but I just want to make sure we're going down the right road here, so.
Get us on track.
We got
Appreciate
to
it.
separate it. All right, so we'll go ahead and open up public hearing first, and then we'll come back to it. No one is signed to speak, so we'll close it, and then we'll go back to amendment number 1.
We're gonna make a motion to approve the whole thing, and then we can have a vote on the amendment and then a vote on the, I think that's what Councilmember Gant was suggesting, is perhaps you want to vote against the amendment, but in favor of the overall thing, regardless of the outcome.
That'd be my preference.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the UDO as presented.
Okay.
UDO amendments as presented.
Wait, so.
For
hang
both,
on.
for both
So
items.
For both items, yes, the
Both
UDO
items.
amendment 1 or 2 as presented, and then.
We'll do another motion to amend the amendment that we just approved.
We didn't approve an amendment before.
Right, let's like assume that we do approve
You went to
the
Russian
whole
dolphins,
thing.
right?
I don't, that's very confusing. It's
Hang on.
cloudy here.
Let's
so.
vote on the first amendment.
Yes.
And then let's vote on the second amendment,
Yes,
please.
that's exactly what we need to
That
do.
way it makes, I can understand it better. Okay.
All right,
Well, we had a motion at least, so we should have a non-second, right?
who's the motion from?
Okay.
We pause for a second. Take a step back. I thought that what Councilmember Gant had asked was that you wanted the vote on the change to be separate from the vote on the overall amendment, because the implication I was hearing is maybe you'd want to vote against the amendment. When I say amendment, I mean amendment to the motion.
I'm gonna vote against something, and I prefer it to be against the increase after the.
Right, we're gonna have, okay.
Yeah.
Procedurally, to have a separate vote for the increase than on the approval of the whole thing.
So, yeah.
Right, like, so if I motion that we approve the whole thing, and we second that, and then before we vote on that,
we should do the amendment.
then Council, or the Mayor Pro Tem motions to change the increase, and we have a vote on the increase, which will pass or fail. And then a final vote on the actual motion to approve everything as amended or not amended.
Can I make a suggestion to
Yes,
maybe
please.
simplify things? Council member Killingsworth has already made a motion to amend what the proposal. I don't know the numbers. I'm sorry. I wasn't able to capture them all as you said. But maybe vote on that amendment suggestion that she has made first.
Okay.
And then we can vote.
And then you can vote on the UDO amendments as a whole.
Can I make yet another motion?
But
Well, we have a motion on the floor
Yes.
From Mayor Pro Tem.
from Mayor Pro Tem that has been seconded by Councilmember Mahaffey. So if we could resolve that one first.
But I want to change, like, I want to put a counter proposal again, for that motion.
So you can ask to amend the motion.
Okay. I would like to ask to amend that motion and up so specifically for the apartment and hotel uses, up the EV readiness from 20% to 30%, with the requirement staying at 15% as suggested.
Okay. So the EV ready spaces is the one you want to increase?
Correct. I think 20% in 5-10 years' time is not going to be enough.
For the apartment
Apartment and hotel.
and hotel.
How you feel about that?
So what did the Mayor Pro Tem say for the motion was for the hotel? So I have 2015 for multifamily was what the Mayor Pro Tem suggested. What was the motion for the hotel? Was that also 2015?
2010.
2010.
Sorry, I misstated. So.
And then you want to go to 3010.
I want to go to 3015 and 3010 respectively.
So you're adding 10% more of
On readiness.
ready.
Correct. I mean, if we're going to be putting a new parking lot in place, might as well dig the trench and lay the pipe.
Yeah, yeah. So they don't have to dig everything up. I think I'm okay with that.
Okay, all right, so we have the motion from Councilman Zigerman. Second.
So get the second, right? Now discussion
Yes.
about the amendment. My thoughts on either of these amendments is this is researched, and the market theoretically will do its job as there's more and more of these. They're going to do. I think we're a little ahead of the market, I guess, right now, or maybe not for long. But and the question during the middle of my discussion is, what was the cost of the chargers? I think you had this information at the planning committee.
Yeah, I don't have everything in front of me, but I recently looked at not for installation and everything, but just the cost of a level 2 charger.
Yeah.
The quotes were from 2021 were around $8,500 for level 2 for the chart. That was the quote from from about an average from 2 of the suppliers or the manufacturers of the charging equipment.
8,500.
Yes.
And will that serve one vehicle or multiple vehicles at the same time?
Those were both for dual chargers, but there are a lot of options, whether they're networked. There are a lot of like different things you can choose to add on to a charger, but that was kind of the general ballpark. But those are 2 years old at this point. Those quotes.
Visibly higher. I guess my point of that is that the more you start adding dollars to this, I get concerned about state saying we cannot do this. And so I think incremental changes, which I think we have in this proposal, minimizes as much as possible the state undoing any authority we have on this. So I live in fear sometimes of losing municipal authority. I think we're getting lucky right now in this current session not to lose some stuff that they talked about. But the more you add dollars, the more somebody's going to talk to somebody and they're going to get it on some bill. I'm afraid of.
That Councilmember Zigerman's amendment doesn't really add that many dollars, because what he's doing is bumping the ready spaces. And that's equivalent of like having solar ready roofs where you're just running a wire.
I guess my objection is the 15, not the 15% of the chargers, not the ready. I'm not as concerned about as the chargers themselves. I think that's where we're getting. I think the state may get rid of everything, but I especially think the 15% from 10 will be where they get us, where they may perk up.
I think what the projects that we're looking at, right, where there will be some material increase in expense, are the larger properties, right, more than 50 units of development. These are multi-million-dollar projects, and we're worried about a couple $1,000s on chargers. I just don't see it.
Well, many of the recent apartments have had 400 spaces. I mean, they've been big parking lots, so it's a percent of
right.
a large number.
That also means there's a whole lot of units to accommodate 400, or that correspond to 400 cars, right? So the cost relative to the cost of the development as is a drop in the bucket.
That's what I think, but I just don't know if the builders would feel that way. And they're the ones who are going to get some eyes here, potentially.
I'm willing to take that risk, but that's me. I mean, they want to be in business in Apex for a reason, right? This is an attractive area to develop, and I think they, again, like relative to the size of these projects, we're not talking a whole lot of increase.
Okay.
I guess that's the only thing I want to input is, I guess everybody saw the packet from staff, and there was probably some thoughts about changing this before the meeting. And just going in the future, can you please just get up with staff and talk about those things so we can work it out before we get into the meeting? That would be very helpful.
I would agree with that statement too. As an aside as well.
And to the extent I would chime in on this is that if I feel like the proposal from staff is something that we can adjust down the road, I don't know whether or not tossing a number out without a little bit more of the digging in and the research, we don't know the numbers on cost. We don't know the numbers on what that impact is going to be. It's a laudable goal. I agree. Listen, I always want to find a place to charge. That's a big deal in my life, but I feel very uncomfortable with us increasing a number, and I don't have the advice and benefit of what staff has been able to tell me I mean, if we come back and say, hey, research 15%, tell us what that's going to be, what's that cost is going to be, what that can be, what are we not seeing as we're right here? I think that's important. So I'm voting against the amendments to the amendment and the amendment.
Okay, any other discussion? All right, I guess we'll do the vote.
I think you have to have 3 votes.
What's that?
Yeah. We have an amendment to an amendment, then we have the amendment initially, and then the final vote to approve the whole package.
Okay, so the first amendment.
That would be.
Councilmember Zigerman's amendment to the amendment.
Right, his, yeah. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
So that passes 3-2.
3-2.
And then.
All right. All right, Mayor Pro Tem's motion.
As amended.
As amended. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
No.
All right, can we do that again? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
So we have 3. Oppose?
No.
All right, passes 3-2. All right.
Now as a whole.
Now as a whole.
Motion to approve the whole. Do we need another motion to approve the whole thing? Or we
Yes. All right.
So
all in favor say aye.
I move we approve the amendments presented by staff as amended.
And I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion second. Any further discussion? No. Let's go. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. We have 2 ayes.
Aye, 3.
3, okay. 4. All opposed?
No.
All right, so motion passes 4-1. All right, chief.
Will you come to the mic?
Just make sure when I update this. So we're doing 30% EV ready for multifamily or apartment and hotel.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. And then 15% EV charging requirements. So this column for multifamily or apartment.
Correct.
Okay. And then 10% EV charging for hotel. motel.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schaus, for all your work.
Sure.
Appreciate all you do.
Just to make sure the numbers were right.
All right, we move on now to updates by Manager Crosby.
I just have two updates. The first is it is Public Works Week, and so I just want to say thank you to all our Public Works staff. They do everything from making sure that our streets are clean, picking up leaves, making sure that we're safe during the cold months, our facilities, our fleet, our signage, just the whole gamut. And I think a lot of people don't know how much they're out helping to make sure that the town stays beautiful. So just want to show appreciation to them. And then secondly, we're closed on Monday for Memorial Day, and I hope that everybody comes out on Monday morning at 9 o'clock for the Memorial Day celebration. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you so much for those updates.
And just for clarification, the Memorial Day celebration is downtown
Yes, it is downtown.
at 9 a.m.
At 9 a.m.
Hosted by the American Legion, right?
Hosted by the American Legion.
Very good. All right. Is there a motion to go into closed session for the 2 closed session items?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
Have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries unanimously. We'll move into closed session, and we will not have any further business tonight in here.
next meeting, how about that?
The gift that we received from,
Oh.
this is a gift to the town.
I'll donate mine too, so.
Amend my motion to come out of closed session. Let's stay in closed session for 30 more minutes. Have some fun this time.
That was fun. Is he got it?
Yeah.
Are we live? Okay, all right. Great night. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.